Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Daily with Jay and Clay. We are glad you made it. We have some really important stuff. And Clay, I'm glad you made it back because I missed you and I did one video without you. So it was awkward, right? I in my mind, I talked to myself a couple times, but glad you're back. And I want to go ahead and toss this back over to you because I know that a lot of these subjects are absolutely near and dear to your heart. So I want you to be able to rattle them off for folks. But before we jump into it, if you could hit that thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff, we really appreciate it. Look, we're trying to get growth on this channel because it is a different format. It is absolutely a dialogue based, going back and forth, different perspectives. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't, sometimes we don't even know what we're doing. But the bottom line is that information's good, and having different sets of eyes on specific subjects is actually a good thing. So do that for us. Really appreciate it. Clay, over to you. Give us the rundown.
All right, so today's topic is talking about problems at the VA and more specifically what we can do about them. You know, we talk about C&P exams and bad VSOs this and bad VSOs that. And look, the problem exists. Whether we talk about it or not, the problem is there. And so what we're going to do is address those problems and then really put it back on us, the veterans, and say, hey, this problem exists. There's something we can do about it. How can we position ourselves in the best manner to have our claim approved? That's really what we're going to be getting at. And there's 4 topics we're going to cover. Is the number one problem with the VA are C&P exams. And that's becoming more objective as time goes on with OIG reports and then Congress getting involved now. And then a second problem, which is really my opinion, is transparency. I think the VA can do a much better job at just being transparent through the claims process altogether. And then, of course, we'll talk about bad VSOs. One bad experience with the VSO can really turn away veterans from submitting any claims ever. And we never want that to happen. Okay. And then the last thing we're going to talk about are decision letters. The amount of junk in a decision letter is absolutely insane. When you only need this much, the VA gives you a 30-page packet and half of it is completely useless anyways. And so with that, Jason, let's go back to C&P exams, compensation and pension. It's not necessarily, hey, I'm going to ace my C&P exam, which is important. All right. We'll definitely cover that. But it's really how I see holistically the VA claims process. There's one variable that kind of messes up this VA claim process circle we got going on, and that's the C&P exam. These are contracted out exams, and the contracting out of exams happened in the late 90s, I want to say 1996 was when C&P exams started being contracted out. Obviously, over the last, 20, almost 30 years now, which is wild to say, especially in the last 5 years, C&P exams have been essentially taken over by the contract companies. And speaking on C&P exams being the number one variable, I want to hear your thoughts as to why a C&P exam can kind of be like a speed bump in the veterans claim process.
You bring up a good point because you could have everything dialed in and feel like you are golden. And then you hit that speed bump. And I think that the biggest issue is lack of awareness of what it is and how to prepare for it. I can't even count how many times I've either seen comments or in my professional life had questions on, well, what do I do for the C&P exam? How do I prepare? And the sad part is that it is actually super easy to prepare for it. It's just that nobody knows. So, it's kind of like finding that restaurant, a great restaurant that's down some alley somewhere that, is not on Google Maps, right? You happened upon it. And that's the whole purpose, right? Of why we are even here having these conversations is because this immense amount of lack of information for individuals. Now, when we think of the C&P exam, A lot of people get this weird, I don't know, back in grade school, even if it's subconscious, back in grade school, oh my God, I'm taking an exam. I don't know what to do. I'm so stressed out. Look, it's not a closed book test. You can take notes on things, and we're going to dive in on how to overcome it here in a minute. But one of the things, because I do want to do the bouncing back and forth thing with you here, Clay. So one of the things when we talk about C&P exams is understanding what the VA, is looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you don't know what they're looking for, how can you ever prepare? So they're looking for two things. They're looking for, is this really service connected? And let's be honest. Let's be honest, Clay. Many, many, many claims out there, it's teetering on your proof for Nexus, right? It's buddy statements, it's your own statement, it's one little blurb in a medical record that you complained of something once, right? No diagnosis, nothing like that. So the information coming from the C&P examiner on if you're really service connected or not is a big deal. And the second piece is, and this is the part that kills me, and I will tell you, there's not enough information out there about it. Everybody focuses on that first piece. Make sure that you can get service connected. There's the second piece of the C&P exam, which is make sure you get the correct rating, because if you're supposed to be a 60% for GERD today, whatever we are, April of 2024, if you're supposed to be 60%, but for some reason you get a 0, you better understand you should have been a 60 and get that corrected, even if it's after the fact, ideally, right? Upstream, right, Clay? I mean, you'd want to
Mm-hmm.
have that all dialed in and be prepared. So I would say that the two biggest things are under the umbrella of unawareness is how to prepare to, one, prove that you are service connected, not fumble that. And two, make sure you get that correct rating. I'm going to stop there because I want you to dig a little deeper, and then I'll chime back in.
Oh yeah, so I'm gonna take an entirely different approach, and I totally agree. The service connection and the symptom severity are critical for any disability. Doesn't matter what it is for VA claims. But a different approach is actually looking at a recent article from military.com where Senator Warren, right, from Massachusetts, um, wrote a letter to the VA secretary, our boy Dennis McDonough, and basically demanding answers for C&P exams. And this happened about 3-4 days ago. Let's just call it April 24th. Okay, round about that time frame. And she's asking questions about these C&P exams because, and this really gets down to the actionable side of the house, a ton of her constituents and other veterans across the nation have made enough complaints that C&P examiners are just straight up lying. I've heard some wild stories on C&P exams. I've had some bad experiences myself, but not that bad. And so it really focuses on the inadequacy of C&P exams. And then her letter also focuses on just the professionalism. The letter talks about how some C&P exams were conducted like in a hotel room in like a working closet, which is, that's not the first time I've heard that. I've heard that from multiple veterans. And so looking at all
Right.
those indicators, I believe that to be true, especially now that it's coming from a senator. And she's demanding these answers to those questions from the VA by May 14th. So we will definitely be on top of that. And it really comes down to this, right? I'm not sure how government contracting works, but being in the military, I think we all understand that the lowest bidder gets the
Yeah.
check mark, right? And so that's how I'm approaching this. We have these contracting companies. There's the big three, right? You have LHI, which changed their name to OptumServe or LLC or something weird like that. You have VES and then QTC. And there's no mechanism that I know of that holds these examiners accountable. That's the issue I think that Senator Warren is talking about, or at least veterans are talking about or complaining about, because how many higher level reviews with the duty to assist error due to a CMP examiner does there need to be like, hey, that company's not doing something right? I can't tell you how many duty to assist errors that I've seen simply on the CMP exam itself. And it begs the question of, okay, well, let's look at the CMP exam process. And it's not just the examiners, although I think it is. Okay. But
Mhm.
it could also be from the OIG report of 2022. The OIG slammed the VA on proper procedures for conducting CMP exams, meaning when you submit a claim, it goes to an adjudicator, right? So someone behind a computer looking through your records, they're finding what is there and what is not there. So the piece that is not there, they say, hey, CMP examiner, go ahead and figure that out, right? It's generally going to be the nexus and symptom severity. The issue with that is the OIG report saw that in like 68% of cases, it might be 62, right? Let's just round it and call it 65. In 65% of those cases that they sampled, the adjudicator did not send the
Mhm.
service records needed for the
Mhm.
nexus. You could imagine being a medical professional without evidence. How can you make the nexus? You can't. It's impossible, right? That's one issue on the VA side. The other issue is a lot of CMP examiners are combative, and I'll only speak, I won't speculate here. I'll only speak from my personal experience. There's this one dude in Fairfax, Virginia. I saw him twice over about a year time frame, maybe a year and a half. I saw him twice, and he was just a curmudgeon. He did not want to listen to what I had to say. Now, my claims were service connected. It kind of gets back to exactly what you just said. All my claims with this examiner were service connected because I had evidence, one, but the symptom severities were all at 0%. Right. And I was just like, oh, well, that's
Mhm.
good, but I guess that sucks. Right.
Mhm.
And this was pre before I really understood the process. So there's a lot to uncover there, but that's the issue. And we're kind of on the edge of our seat because I am very, very interested into the answers, right, that are supposed to be due before May 14th. And once that comes out, I'm sure Jason and I will definitely push those to you. I think it's going to be, this has potential to have the biggest cause for change within the CMP exam process in itself. That
Yeah,
was a mouthful. I'm going to kick it back to you.
yeah. And here's the thing. Yes, I agree. Lowest bidder attitude, all that stuff. People just looking to make some extra cash or whatever, right? Sometimes these are small. Sometimes it's a contractor within a contractor. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like a subcontractor, right? So it's that's the one that's in the hotel room just running CMP exams. So there's no incentive for them to just completely deny every single veteran running through the door because they're going to end up getting no work, right? Eventually. So I think that yes, there are those issues. I don't know how rampant it is, right? I mean, you got to think there's 5.7 or something million veterans that are service connected. Bad news always travels faster, and you're always going to hear those, right? Like this. I've never had a CNP exam for myself that like was completely just like, oh, I can't believe this was just. I feel like they were out to get me personally. Now, did I have them kind of push on my back a little bit and prod and poke, and I felt like, well, that kind of sucks because I almost fell on the ground, right? Sure, but that got me my radiculopathy because they're pushing on the nerves, right? So there is some of that has to happen. Now they can't be, slamming down on your back as you're bent over on the back of your neck, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, and I've heard those stories, and so have you. So, it. This and I don't know. I think the sad part here is that the VA has a very easy out We did it the way that it was supposed to be. It's not us, it's them. We have, all the if you had a bad C&P exam, we give, recourse, right? We have 4 bullet points on our website on what you're supposed to do if you have a bad C&P, blah, blah, blah. And so what's going to be the result? What's not going to happen is we're going to give you, VA, even more money so you can do it all in-house and hire just C&P examiner physicians. Not going to happen. It's still going to be contractors, and it's not going to be like, oh, use different contractors. No, because those are the big, there's a bunch of mom and pop shops. It's going to be too labor intensive to work on one-on-one basis. So what's going to happen? We're going to work diligently. This is the VA, diligently to create a checklist of do's and don'ts to send out to all the C&P examiners and contractors, and have them sign, that they agree to this and treat our veterans fairly and lovingly, and, blow them kisses, right? That's all that's going to happen. At the end of this thing, I mean, there'll be a little more something, but people are people. You're still going to have the jerky ass who is rude. Right? They're not going to fire you. Were rude. Sorry, we're going to fire you. It's probably not going to happen. Because what's the other side of the story? Well, the veteran came in and he was rude, or she was rude, and whatever. So I think that it really all circles back to, you need to be very, very cognizant of the words that come out of your mouth. Don't rely on the C&P examiner to read between the lines. You need to go in there and make their job to help you, even if that's not what they're looking at it as. You want them to help you, right? You need to go in there and basically give them only the information they need to get you to where you want to be. Service connected at the right percentage, right? Now, if you have a bad C&P exam, because that's what we're talking about, right? So if you have a bad C&P exam, especially given the light of the current senator's, basically inquiry with the VA, is maybe you contact, if you've had one recently, a bad one, or you have one soon, probably reach out to your senator. Let them know. Right? The more people that are on board and hear it, the more that real change could potentially happen, right? Whatever change that may be. But what you do need to do, if you have a bad C&P exam, and I'll give you what my suggestion is, and I want to hear what you say, Clay. One, you should notify the VA that you had a crappy C&P exam, and here's why, right? If you were injured, like the range of motion stuff is notorious for having physicians or whoever push on you to get you to go that extra couple inches, right? I just got an email yesterday about a guy who went in and they pushed on him, and lo and behold, his rating was reduced. So he had like a follow-up C&P exam, right? And they pushed on him, got that extra flexation or whatever range of motion, and they reduced him. So if you have a situation in which you were injured, right? If they stretched you and you're laid out for 3 days and you can't go to work or something like that, you need to annotate that. You need to get documentation from your employer saying that you called in sick. You need to go see your regular primary doctor, get that stuff, just like you're running an insurance claim from an accident. I mean, you need to go document all of that. Utilize probably the 4138, that's the form, 4138, which is just the statement form from you as the veteran. And fill that out explaining your circumstance at your C&P exam, and send that to the VA. Now, here's the thing. It might not help you in your current claim, but when it goes to the judge, if you have to appeal it, all this becomes way more relevant. You're telling a story, and you want to make sure that story makes sense. So, that's one part of what I would do. The second part that I would do, Clay, is be prepared to file that higher level review, or I'm a fan of supplemental claim because, look, unless they actually really missed something in the file that clearly points it out, go with supplemental and just double down on the evidence that they're saying they don't have. And I would go that route. That's kind of my take on the bad C&P exam, kind of what to do. What's your thoughts, Clay?
Yeah, what you said first is you almost took the words right out of my mouth. And you're right. I think veterans need to be real and understand that if you had a bad C&P exam and you call the VA, you write the personal letter, the personal statement, you send all that stuff through Quick Submit or your VSO, whatever that looks like for you. The real answer is it doesn't matter for that claim. That claim's going to go through the process. It's going to be adjudicated. And then assuming that you're going to be denied, which is what's implied, that's going to happen, right? You really see statements for anything. Statements really do come in clutch when you're in front of the board, right? When you're in front of a judge and you're telling that story. And that is the story aspect is really evidence. And so there's two types of veterans, right? If I was to generalize all veterans making VA disability claims, you have those that have medical evidence. 99% of those are going to be fine. They're not complaining on social media about the VA, right? Because the loudest
Right.
voices get heard.
Yeah.
And so they have medical evidence, they have a diagnosis.
Right.
A lot of my claims, I had evidence from my post deployment health assessments, my annual health assessments. Generally speaking, easy day, right? That's over there. Then you have the majority of veterans that don't have medical evidence, right? Yeah. had to get the whole screen there.
Yeah.
Majority of veterans don't have medical evidence from health assessments, pre or post deployment health assessments, from their exit exam. They have nothing. That's where majority of veterans will fall into, especially the older veterans. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying that as a joke, but I mean like
Right.
your, pre 03 veterans, 03
Right.
and prior. The systems, technologies just is not what it is today, right?
Right.
It just wasn't. And so now you're looking at statements, you're looking at, well, the doc gave me medication. And then you ask yourself, well, can I go get a statement from the doc? If you remember their name, sure, right? But that's probably not even possible. And so you're really relying on a thread of in-service events that the VA would consider for that claim. And that's when statements do come in clutch. And I'm gonna be real with you, you fall into the category of no medical evidence, and your evidence is a slither from service. I'm telling you right now, you're probably going to be denied, right? Let's not sugarcoat it. You're probably going to be denied. But this video is about, well, what can you do about that? All right. What you can do about it is, first, it starts with that intent to file. Have the intent to file, gather all the evidence you possibly can, whether that's medical or evidence other than medical. Statements. I've seen personnel reports and fit reps, like a fitness report. The Marine Corps does annual reports on each Marine, right? So the Army does NCOERs. I've seen those be used as evidence to show like a mental health decline, and those were service connected. So think outside the box. What evidence do I have? Gather that, submit the claim. And if you have very little evidence, just go ahead and prepare for denial, right? And in that instance, you're going to want statements, buddy letters, everything you have, because you're going to have to appeal that. And that's probably going to go all the way to the judge in that very niche setting where you have very little evidence. And statements really do come in clutch there. The second thing I want to hit on is I'm going to double down on the evidence piece. Bad C&P examiners exist. You're not going to change that. I don't think the VA is going to change that. How you put it, you almost prophesied the VA's press release there, and if it comes out and it's what you said, that would be insane. Okay. But these bad CMP examiners exist. I'm saying bad, right? Bad CMP examiners exist. And so what we need to do, that puts more emphasis on the evidence gathering piece. Veterans can lean on evidence. All my disabilities that were service connected at 0, because I had evidence, I did a higher level review, boom, got the proper rating, right? Had I not had the evidence, whatever the CMP examiner says becomes the truth, right? We don't want that. I would not rely on a CMP examiner, just like I wouldn't rely on anyone else to submit my claim. I would be in control as much as I can to gather that evidence, submit my fully developed claim, or as close to that line as possible. All my evidence from service, my current evidence from my private physician, the VA, whatever that looks like, and go ahead and submit that claim. Because CMP exams, they exist, man, and you either do that or you don't. I love saying that, right? You either prepare for your claim or you don't. And if you're on the don't side, sorry, you have to take responsibility and submit evidence with your claim if you want your claim to be service connected, especially if you have if you're in the evidence other than medical column. That's my rant, Jason. I'm going to kick it back to you because I will really go down down that road.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think, I agree with everything you're saying. Absolutely. And how, again, can you prepare, right? I mean, you still might be thinking this out there. Number one is again, knowing what they're looking for, right? They're looking for those two things we talked about, which is there a nexus? Is there a link between your time in service and your condition? What they're looking for is not necessarily the military caused this. They're looking for more, did this manifest first begin during your time in service, or is it a result of your time in service, right? So that's kind of what they're looking for. And then they're looking for the severity, right? Some of these things, range of motion stuff, it is what it is. You just need to be honest with yourself. If it hurts already, say it already hurts, right? Bend as far forward as you can with, and tell me when you feel pain. I feel pain now, right? Now, be honest. Don't be jerky about it, but, just have the conversation and be honest. But other things like GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, or migraines, that type of stuff is going to rely on you explaining your symptoms, right? So how do you prepare for that? Well, you can't just go in there and think that it really disrupts my life. My quality of life sucks, because those are not listed in the schedule of ratings for either one of those conditions, right? That doesn't mean anything really to the VA. You need to look at the schedule of ratings for your specific conditions, and this is so nuanced, and we talk about it all the time. There is not one claim file that's the same. There's so many different twists and turns and so much nuance in this that it's best for you to look at the schedule of ratings, read your condition. And I always just say, look, read the bottom one first. It's going to give you all the ratings that are available for that specific condition. There might be 3 ratings, there might be 5, there might be 1. So understanding where you're going to, if it's only 1 rating, then it is what it is. You just need to go get service connected for it. If there's 5 ratings for it, well, start off at the bottom one. If it's 0, it's 0. Read that and go, okay, yeah, I meet all that criteria. Well, then read the next one. Right? Read all that. If you meet all that criteria, great. Go to the next one. Keep doing that until you get to where you don't meet all the criteria, and then back down one. If that happens to be a 50% rating, then I should be a 50% rating. Now it's up to you to take that information with you and share it. Now, again, I'm really a fan of swimming upstream instead of all the after the fact stuff. Really, you should be having that conversation with your primary doctor and getting that put into your medical files, and ideally having a DBQ completed by your private doctor before you even file your claim, before a CMP exam can ever even happen. But if you miss that window, not a big deal. prepare for your CMP exam then and take that information from the rating schedule to your CMP exam. Again, it's not a closed book test, right? To print it out, circle it, handwrite it, do something, copy, paste, whatever. Show up with it so you can, for lack of a better word, regurgitate it in that CMP exam, right? Because you want to be able to articulate to the CMP examiner the exact information that your rater is going to be looking for in order to rate you, right? So another thing is don't guess stuff. God, I hate that. So for an example, let's say that you're on this side, like Clay was talking about, right? Of you don't really have any solid, concrete nexus evidence, right? You have some buddy statements, whatever. Okay, great. So now you're relying really heavily on your CMP examiner. Now, let's say that you got out of the military, whatever. We'll say 10 years ago. You joined 4 years before that. So you joined 14 years ago and you served for 4 years. Okay. Following me? I hope. All right. So you joined 14 years ago. Well, you're a rounder. You like to round numbers, ever close enough. So tell me, Mr. or Mrs. Veteran, when did you first start getting your migraines? About 15 years ago. Well, guess what? That's before you joined the military, so that's not service connected. So you're done. You are the key witness, and you just shot yourself in the foot because you like to round numbers, right? So make sure that you have your dates correct when you're there. This, I've said it before, Clay. I'm going to say it again. Treat this like $1 million or multi-million-dollar deal because it really is, right? And it's up to you to get it right. So any last thoughts on CMP before I go nuts?
For CMP exams, I liked how you mentioned about the, it messes up the quality of my life. I swear on my life, this morning I wake up, I'm just scrolling on my phone because that's what I'm doing. And I'm on the Facebooks and I see a veteran post a question on a certain group and talks about flat feet. And the comment had, I don't know, probably 15, 16 likes on it. And it said, hey, when you have your CMP exam, talk about the worst day of your life. And I'm just reading it like, bro, what are you saying and how are people agreeing with you? Because that's not in the scheduled ratings at all. It talks about pronounced flat feet and bilateral and unilateral and that stuff. And it got nothing to do with my back hurts. Oh, my feet hurt, so I sit down. Okay. And right. So it goes back to really what you said is not just have your evidence, but you have to know your evidence, right? I had migraines in 2012 when I came back from my deployment. Boom. That's much better than, oh, my migraines affect my quality of life. Okay. And that is answer my question. That's my that's
I
my
agree.
last thought. I can't believe that happened this morning, but whatever. I should probably go back and do some
Yeah.
comments on that post. But
And you're right, Clay. I mean, I see that all the time too, and I've heard it through now and in my past professional life all the time. That the people's advice to others that are going to go through a CMP exam, regardless of what it's for, just tell them how much it affects your quality of life, and you can't do anything. And it's like, no, I mean, you maybe for like mental health, sure, but everything else, probably you need to be looking at your schedule of ratings and actually give them what they're looking for so they can rate in your favor. I'm just saying. I mean, if you have the rule book, you might as well cheat. So there's no guesswork. It's right there. You look at it. So what's the next topic, Clay? Let's jump into that.
The second problem with the VA, and this is just our opinion, okay? My opinion is transparency, right? So we have, you can request your C file, but that takes anywhere from 6 to 9 months, all right? On average, I've seen 5 months just in the comment section of various videos. But I like to say 6 on the low end, 9 on the high end. And I would make the argument that if the VA was simply more transparent, throughout the claims process, right? If they were more transparent, you wouldn't have all of these questions. And I'll give you an example. There's a tool on Google Chrome. It's a Google Chrome extension. It's veteran made. It complies with all the cybersecurity policies of Google Chrome. Okay. And it's a Chrome extension. When you go on to va.gov and track your claim, it will give you more information as to where your claim is at. I don't want to get too nerdy about it, but that Google Chrome extension pulls information that's already there. Meaning, what that means is the VA has the information on their website,
Right.
but it's blocked by a wall. The Google Chrome reaches through and pulls the information out. And so what that makes me ask is, well, why the heck is the VA hiding information from veterans? That's what they're doing. Okay. Now, is it intentional? I don't know. Right. All I'm saying is if the VA was just more transparent about, don't give me code 416 or code 417. A DBQ has been processed and sent. Don't give me that. Just let me know more information. Let me see the DBQ. Why do veterans have to request to the regional office or to a VSO that has VBMS access, hey, can I see my DBQ results? Why is that a thing? If my wife right now, she uses private healthcare, private insurance, if she wants her entire medical record, it'll take a few days, a week tops. They will send a link electronically that's password protected, HIPAA compliance. She can log in, verify her, two-factor authentication, and download her medical records like that. Me, if I did that, the VA Blue Button report, sure, easy peasy. But my C file for my DBQs, whatever information was processed, my service treatment records, that's probably the biggest one. We're talking 6 to 9 months. And I just can't, I can't find, I generally try to play both sides of the fence here. I cannot find a single argument as to why the VA would keep that information close hold other than to leave the veteran over here and let the VA do VA stuff. And that is a critical, I would say a single point of failure when it comes to veteran frustration with the VA is a lack of transparency. None of that is fact-based. That's all opinion-based. But I would definitely like to hear your thoughts on transparency, what you think about it from the VA's perspective on claims specifically.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, Clay. Why is it easier to get medical HIPAA information, right? I mean, you can get stuff through the HIPAA wall to yourself because and Stan is pissed off now. Great. So you can get this stuff very easily for yourself on the VHA side. Mm-hmm. But on the VBA side, the Veterans Benefits Administration side, not so easy. Stan's pissed. So I think that you're onto something here. And I think that, really the VA would probably save some time. Now, the only reason why I would think, so devil's advocate here, and why we have Stan going off in the background, devil's advocate here on this a little bit. VHA, VBA, two different components. One that's more user friendly, supposed to be, right? Healthcare is it's all about service, right? Where VBA is claims and adjudication and trying to figure it out and deny and approve, right? So it's a different world, and maybe they just haven't caught up with just being able to create a blue button for the VBA side because they're so busy, backlog of claims. What's the most important thing we should be working on? Should we be trying to work on creating a green button on the VBA side for folks to get their information? Or should we work on trying to hammer out these claims? I don't know. But the reality is that, yes, it should be very easy for us to get. Now, I'll go to what would be the main thing somebody would want that they don't have instant access to. Typically, it would be maybe like a C&P exam result, okay, or a DBQ that was completed by somebody, not your personal doctor, to figure out, and why do you want that? To figure out why you were denied. I mean, that's really the only reason you want that. So you were denied now, is what happened. Because chances are most people are just waning, right? I've had my C&P exam. They filled out a DBQ. I'm waiting on my results. Bam, I got my results. I disagree with them. I want copies of that information. So I think that would kind of be the order of it. And I'm just thinking it through, right? So that's why you would want that. Another reason why you would want this information, and you would want that, by the way, so you could file your supplemental claim, most likely, or a higher level review, or push it to the board. So you need to know how you need to combat whatever was already written. The other thing that people want is they want to know if their conditions are static. So there's a whole list, right, that'll tell you, is your condition static or not? Is the VA deeming it static, which means no future exams, which means that you're closer to becoming 100% permanent and total with the more static conditions that you have. Now, all of that should be readily available to you. I agree. Is it? No. Is it going to happen anytime soon? Probably not. So what can you do, right? You can wait 9 months, which that sucks, or your accredited veteran service officer has access to all of that information like that, because they can remote desktop into the VA system and get it. So that is, again, just another advantage. Now, VSOs, look, they're people, they're whatever. Not everybody's great, all that stuff, right? Maybe they didn't help you figure out all the secondaries and every single condition that you should have been able to file for because they don't know you in your situation and they didn't have the time to figure it out. That's a whole other topic of which that whole system needs more money so they could be more proactive, in my opinion. So, but utilizing the VSO to get certain things done for you is advantageous, and that would be one of them, in my opinion. So, yeah, transparency, Clay. You're right. There needs to be a green button, right? There needs to be a green button on the VBA side that just allows you to order this information and have it. I mean, it's all living. It's all digital, right? It's all tied to you and your social security number. And for the world, Clay is way more nerdy than me, so he understands how easy this could be, and it should be. So I think that I'm gonna play the VAs out to get us card here for a second, which I very rarely ever play ever. Maybe I feel like a conspiracy theory guy now.
I'm so excited for this.
Just maybe. Are you really? God. All right. I'm going to say it. Okay, Clay. Maybe, just maybe, the VA wants to make it hard and take a lot of time, so you miss your window to appeal and preserve your effective date.
Maybe.
That saves a lot of money. That's a lot of money. I'm just saying, not just for one person, for hundreds of thousands of people.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you this on transparency, right? If I had transparency for my migraine claim, which came back at 0%, after that C&P exam, by the way, that was with the combative C&P examiner that I had talked about. Had I had the evidence, I went to, the VA's websites, I hit my green button, I was able to see my DBQ.
Right.
Had I saw that he recommended 0%, I would have said, hey man, I got records. Like, you obviously one or two things happened, right? You didn't read them intentionally, which is shame if that happened. I'm not saying it did. I think it did, but shame on him if that happened. Or two, you just completely missed it, right? Had I had that evidence right then and there, I could have said, hey VA, this guy clearly missed something. Here it is. You don't even have to take my word for it. Here's medical evidence. So transparency can be good in that way. As far as the VA's out to get me, I don't. That would be absolutely wild. And I will tell you this. This is outside of VAs. This is kind of supporting what you said, but outside of VA claims altogether, just in general. When someone is not transparent, it's because they're hiding something. Take that for what it's worth. Okay. If I'm ever, for instance, let's talk about my wife. If my wife asks me a question and I tell her like a selected truth, or I'm not fully transparent, because I'm hiding something, right? Maybe I want to go drink with the boys on Saturday. Maybe I slept in, maybe I didn't change my baby's diaper the last hour that I told her I did. Whatever the case is. When someone's not transparent, it's because they're hiding something. And, run with that what you will. And I would like to see more transparency on the VBA side of the house. I understand it's a legal process, an adjudication process, not a healthcare process. But it's not Social Security. It's nothing like that. It's its own beast. There's absolutely no reason the VA should not be transparent. That's my last thoughts on that, unless you want to add to the conspiracy. We're getting a little dark here,
No, I'm not going to add to the conspiracy theory because whatever. I'm just trying to play both sides, right? So I don't think that that's the case. I think that oftentimes anything that leads to that sort of feeling or kind of situation from the VA side is, I don't know how to explain it. It's not government laziness. I think that oftentimes that's what it is. Here's a problem, it's not that big of a deal. Let's move on. So I do want to end this portion here with, I'm absolutely in agreement with you that the VBA needs more transparency to the veteran. After all, the VA, the VBA, the VA as a whole is there for us. If it weren't for us, they wouldn't even exist, right? So same thing with all of our politicians. We would have no politicians if it weren't for veterans, right? Because if we weren't here, there wouldn't be a U.S. So now, granted, we've walked down the line a ways since then, but you get the point. I think transparency is important. I think that it's an important piece for the entire process of VA claims. And I think that we are collectively, Clay, onto something when we're talking about this green button initiative. And I think that for those of you watching, let's kind of coin that term, the green button, and who knows, maybe 3, 4, 5 years down the road, there'll be a green button in which we can, just at a click of a button, be able to get the information that we need with regard to our claims. Because, there's bills out there to address issues within the appeals process, right? So let's swim upstream, and if a veteran can ascertain what they need to do with the information that's already been used so they can then file an appropriate supplemental claim, there's going to be no need to push it to the board. There's going to be no need to deal with any of that, which will create a pullback from the VBA, which then will allow them to, instead of taking 5 years, it will take them 1 year. Go figure, right? So, but we need to swim upstream, and I think that the green button idea is a great idea, and I'm willing to reach out and have some conversations, and reach out to let's have a single point of contact on the House and the Senate side, and just reach out to the Veterans Affairs committees for both, and let them know that this is something that needs to happen, and it will help fix this appeal process problem as well.
Yeah. I would also like to say to the United States government that Jason and I and Veterans Daily coined the term green button with intellectual property rights. Just FYI. No, I'm kidding.
I love it. God, you are nerdy. I love it. Yes.
So moving on to the third problem, and these last two will be fairly quick, are bad VSOs. Okay. The reason why I say that, and I have a particular question for you, Jason, because you were a county VSO, and I'm very interested into how you're going to answer this. But one poor experience with the VSO can completely turn a veteran off from claiming benefits altogether, if not turn them towards other avenues like claims consulting companies, and we won't even go there. You get the point. Okay.
Mhm.
My question for you, because you ran an office of county VSOs, I'm very curious to know, and you don't have to say names or places. Did you ever experience a bad VSO that was in your office? How did you handle that? Were they even there in the first place? Did you try and work with that person? I mean, what was that whole situation like, assuming you had one in the first place? So I'm
Right.
very curious as to what you're about to say to this, because that's something that, I think transparency on the VA side, I think we need more transparency on the VSO side as well.
Right. So VSO, okay, so for folks out there, VSO is a confusing acronym or initials anyway. VSO could mean veteran service organizations like your VFW, your American Legion, all that stuff. VSO can also mean veteran service officer, which is the head person of a county, or typically it's going to be the county's efforts to support veterans, and there will be veteran reps underneath them. Kind of like if you were to think of a real estate office, you have a broker and then you have a bunch of realtors underneath them. So as a veteran service officer running an office, so in the state where I did that, there were a lot of veteran service officers running all the different counties. Now, some were very small counties where there was just a veteran service officer and that was it, and they were everything, right? Then there was huge offices where there may be a staff of 30 or 40 people, and then I was kind of in the middle size. Now, some counties, so this is some problems that I see within the veteran service officer kind of world. It's not the same county by county by county. So for example, the DA in every county is the DA. I mean, they have their specific spot within the county. Your librarian is the librarian for the county. They have their specific spot in the hierarchy. Your whoever, right? Social services person has their spot. And it's typically the same hierarchy. Well, veteran service officers tend to be all over the board. In some cases, they're a department head, high level department head meetings with, the sheriff, the DA, the public defender, the, social services, so on and so forth. And then in other counties, they'll be driven way down and live, inside of social services underneath another department within that department, and then buried underneath the aging and adult services, right? So that's one problem. Now, I know that this is a lot to kind of get to the answer that you're looking for, but I think that this is part of it. So what happens is the more constricted you make a veteran service office be, the less they can spread their wings and do what's right for veterans, right? It's my belief that a veteran service officer should be its own freestanding department, equal with all of them throughout the county, to have the liberty to work directly with the county administrative officer, work with the board of supervisors, to be able to do what's right for veterans. Now, when that doesn't happen, you're asking for permission to do things all the time from all these different people that are above you, to get anything done. Now, when it's working directly with a veteran, what happens is that in some cases, a veteran service officer, depending on the office, will elect to, hey, I'm going to run claims. I'm going to spend 3 days a week where I'm taking on claims directly from veterans. And other veteran service officers like, no, I don't do claims. That's the vet reps. I'm out hustling, politicking, shaking hands, trying to get more money into the office, grow the organization, and serve vets. I was the latter. So I reviewed, I looked at, I did some stuff up front, painting the picture, doing like you, Clay, going to TAPS classes, spreading the word, that type of stuff, doing one-on-one meetings with folks sometimes to give them an overview. Now, a bad VSO could be somebody that you come across, but most likely it's going to be a veteran service representative, a VSR, who is working for the VSO. Now, having a VSR who is bad is kind of a funny thing because, again, it's a people business, and some people, especially veterans for the most part, you are who you are, and you're going to get what you get. This is me, right? And I'm serving you, and either we gel or we don't. I have had some people that worked for me that some veteran clients absolutely loved how they did business, loved how they approached the problem, loved how they took control of the situation and said, here, let me look at all your stuff. Let me tell you what's going on with you. Let me tell you, and verify, of course, but let me get this going. I don't need you to talk much unless I ask you a question, right? Some people love that. Some people want to be heard, right? So there's never, ever, ever been a circumstance where I had one person that was just completely bad or completely good. Funny enough, right? You're going to get weird little nuancy things. And this is what I would tell the client. You're not married to any of the reps. You can work with whoever you want. If you're not gelling with somebody, we'll reassign you. It's not a big deal. You can work, nobody's feelings are hurt, right? You as a veteran need to find somebody that you connect with. We at my office, we took claims outside of that county as well. We would take claims from anybody who wanted to come work with us. The only time that would ever be an issue is if our wait time became too much for our county, right? For our county residents. So there are some places out there that work that same way. They'll just, we're here to help vets, period, right? And so, all that to say is that you will absolutely run across somebody that you don't jive with, somebody that you don't quite connect with. Take a knee, adjust fire, go at it again, go with somebody else, try somebody new. You're not stuck with anybody. Unless, of course, you're in some little small area somewhere where there's only one veteran service officer out there. Well, then you might have to try to find somebody, online or whatever, some sort of, Wounded Warrior project or something that has veteran service, reps or whatever that are doing claims. So that is my most politically correct way of answering that. For you, Clay, I hope that was very lackluster, but I wanted to also kind of just paint the landscape of that environment because it is different county by county by county, and the discretion sometimes lies in the hands of the veteran service officer on how they're going to, obviously run their office or offices. I had several. So, you want to make sure that, you're doing right by the veterans. And I'll tell you this, that every office, at least in that state, where everybody was absolutely committed to growing the number of veterans receiving compensation. And what that's called is utilization rate. So how many veterans are actually utilizing VA compensation? So, it's like a claim shark is incentivized for getting you the highest increase that they can, right? Well, there's some self-preservation in the VSO world, right? If we don't have people coming to the door to file claims, then what are we here for? eventually you'll just shrink up and be nothing. So, just to keep your job, you want to make sure you're helping vets, right? So, any thoughts on any of that, Clay?
I do. First, I like your choice of words when you say claim shark, right? But hey, we'll go ahead and leave
Yeah.
that there. I like how you worded that and gave the overview, because to be honest with you, that's not something that I even knew. And I'll speak for Virginia. That's where I'm at. The Department of Veteran Services for Virginia, in my opinion, is very good. I met with 3 single VSOs on 3 separate occasions, and they were all genuinely good people that wanted to help veterans. And there are good VSOs out there. I want to flip it actually, and it kind of gets back to what you said, because no veteran is married to that VSO rep or that VSO. And just like there are bad VSOs out there, I'm telling you, there are bad veterans too, right? I do one-on-ones every now and then for free with veterans, and I've had bad experiences when veterans were just combative and they were irritable. There's probably some PTSD in there as well, so it stems from somewhere. But there are your old, grumpy, curmudgeon veterans that just can't jive with people in general. And so, I've spoken to many bad veterans when it comes to their claims. I'm like, look, man, the VA goes by evidence. It's the big 3. You either have it or you don't, right? And so if you don't, then you need to go get it. And that's kind of how I kind of word that battle. But it really goes to say it's personality based. Just like you have a bad VSO, one man's trash is another man's treasure. So that bad VSO that you are talking about could have had, the next veteran walks in the door, could have had a great experience. It's just personality based. And really what it comes down to is, what can you as a veteran do about it? Is find a VSO that's right for you. I went to the DAV rep on Quantico, who was absolute dog water, right? And I'll just kind of keep it there because I can really go down useless. This gentleman was useless. Is the DAV useless? Absolutely
Right.
not. They help probably millions of veterans, right? Thousands and thousands every month, I would assume. It's just that one rep. So what did I do? Hey, I don't really like what you're saying, man. I'm pretty sure that's not correct. Let me go to this VSO. And that's when I was introduced to the Department of Veteran Services, which is a county level VSO. Virginia has the State Department head that you were talking about, and then is delegated down to county. So that was in Stafford County. And that guy was great. Now he wasn't perfect. And so what I really want to talk about is good veterans and bad veterans. That Virginia VSO wasn't perfect. And so that's really what prompted me to understand the process as it pertained to me. And this was years ago, and that's really what started my YouTube journey. But something I want to, the amount, let me roll back. If a veteran solely relies on a VSO for everything, you're at the whim of that VSO, which could be good, could be bad. If the veteran does not take any responsibility and they don't look up how the VA rates that condition, the veteran doesn't understand their evidence from service and then their current evidence and that they need a diagnosis. If the veteran does not take that responsibility, then you're at the whim of that VSO and you're at the whim of that CMP examiner. It goes back to what I said earlier. You either do or you don't, right? I'm on the side of veterans that do. Really, really, really take the time to understand your evidence and just take responsibility for your claim. There are bad VSOs out there. There are amazing VSOs. There are amazing veterans out there. There are bad veterans out there, okay? And that's kind of how I like to wrap that up, unless you have any thoughts on that, Jason.
Yeah, I just want to kind of double down on what you're saying. It's going to an accredited rep wherever is not just show up and you say, okay, tell me what I can claim. I don't know you. I'm sorry. I don't know you, your experience. Well, here's my file. Look, the more work you do up front, right? watch it. Look, if you're watching this video, chances are you've watched other videos. You've watched Clay's channel, the CivDiv. You watched my channel, Veterans Info Tap. You watched other people's channels. There's a ton of information out there. You know what you need to do to start the gathering evidence piece. You don't need to go to a veteran service officer or rep or accredited whoever to file an intent to file. Call the VA's 1000 number. Tell them you want to file an intent to file. Now start working on gathering your evidence. Gather your evidence, and I'll tell you what, when you show up with your evidence, your list of here's my 5 conditions, here's my evidence, here's what I have for Nexus, right? Some of it's just some letters from people. Some of it is actually, maybe some stuff in my service treatment records. That veteran service representative or officer or whoever it is going to be grateful that you actually did some work up front, and they're going to look through it and go, okay, look, for that condition, do you have any sort of secondaries to that, like say X or X, because I've seen these things on that. So they'll have that kind of second set of eyes for you, because now you have shortened up the amount of time that they have to try to figure out your file because you did it. That they can then work on being proactive for you a little bit. If you just show up with nothing, and it's going to be a long road, and they're not going to have a lot of time to figure it all out because they have 15 people behind you. There's some offices, they're all different. Some offices operate in a way of walk-ins only. It's just you walk in and you might have 15 people in front of you, right? Mm-hmm. Other offices are hybrid. Others are all appointment only. So, every office is different, and you need to understand that it's the more that you can do up front and the more that you can understand your situation. Again, it's very nuanced. The better off you'll be. You're not going to show up to your CPA or tax advisor with nothing and go, "Yeah, I need you to." No, you're the tax. You do my taxes. With what? Right? Yeah. Go away. I can't help you. So think of it like that. You need to show up with stuff, and the more organized it is, the easier it's going to be, and the better off you're going to be. That's my rant. Back to you.
I totally agree. And the last thing I want to hit on when it comes to problems at the VA are decision letter packets. And these just, every time I see one, like when I got mine, I was just like, what the heck am I sifting through, right? It's going to come in about a 30-page packet. You claim one condition, you're going to have 30 pages, right? And the first half of that is the VA talking about a bunch of random stuff, right? Hey, here's what your service connected for. Here's your dependents. All that's good. Then it talks about here's what you do if you're denied. It talks about appeals. There's probably 50 different things in the first 16 pages that are absolutely useless. Not to mention your Social Security is on all of this, right? And so it's like, okay, well, it's by mail. You could have emailed this to me with a 2-factor authentication, right? When I log into va.gov, it's me. Why can't this be emailed? And it is on the va.gov's website. But it really comes down to the first half, useless. I don't even know why it's there. The second half is the actual decision letter. And that part is what matters. You can have one denial on a decision letter, and it's just filled with mumbo jumbo. Instead of saying, hey, you were denied, here's why you were denied, here's what of the big 3, here's what you had. Instead of having that, it's all of a sudden a page and a half of just a bunch of baloney. The VA is giving you 38 CFR codes for in-service events and 38 CFR codes for the current diagnosis and 38 CFR codes for the Nexus. You're like, okay, I know that. I know I need the big 3. Then it talks about a bunch of other baloney. And then finally, somewhere in the middle, sieve through somewhere, it's like, hey, here's why you were denied. Like, oh, great. After 30 pages, thank you for finally telling me why I was denied or why I was approved. Jason, I want to hear your thoughts on the decision letter, and what are your thoughts on how the VA could make those better, right? Or more digestible, if you will.
Yeah. You're right. So how could they make it better? So let's start off with what they won't do. They won't not send all the mumbo jumbo extra garbage that takes up 75% of the packet, right?
Yeah.
So they're not going to eliminate that. They probably won't just do like a QR code or something that you could just scan to get that, like scan here for all the other information, right? They probably could legally get away with that, but not everybody has a cell phone that can do it. So really, a message sent is not a message received. So I would say the best way that I would, if it was me, right? If I ran the VA and I knew that this was cumbersome, I would say, look, we're going to do two colors of paper. We're going to do green for all the mumbo jumbo, and we're going to do white for the stuff that really matters to the veteran, right? Like the decision, the findings, the why we didn't rate you at the next criteria, little excerpt from by the way, from the schedule of ratings. We didn't rate you this because you didn't meet this from the schedule of ratings, that if you do meet that, you should have actually had that conversation in your C&P exam. So I would say that color coding the pages, because if I remember right, I mean, it's been a little while, but they're all white, right?
Mhm.
And it's just a bunch of white and black papers, and they all kind of feel and look the same, and you don't know what you should read and what you shouldn't read. And halfway through one page, you go, okay, this is just doesn't even pertain. I don't even care anymore. All I saw was I was denied. Um, or all I saw was I was approved, and you just shut it. Maybe you look at your percentage, right? So that's really it. You look at if you're approved, your percentage, and you move on, and either you're happy or you're mad, but you don't even get down to the part that says we didn't rate you at the next criteria because you didn't meet X, which would be helpful if you actually read that, because if you do meet that, you need to file an appeal with a supplemental claim with additional evidence from your doctor that says that you meet all of that, which is very easy. All you would need to do is what, Clay? Go to your doctor with that and say, hey, doc, would you mind putting this just on your letterhead that I am your patient. I have been suffering from this for however long, and here's my current signs and symptoms and durations or whatever it is, right? And just insert that for me and then go ahead and sign it. I appreciate it. I'll be back on Tuesday to pick that up. Thanks. And then file your supplemental claim and move on. But people miss it, and then they wait like 3 years, and then they hear something from a buddy, and then they look to do it, and then they miss down on the back pay. So just wanted to walk down that path with you there, Clay. So yeah, it's sadly we're in a world of massive disclosure is the reality. I mean, if you buy a house today versus 30 years ago, 30 years ago it was 10 pages that you had to sign, right? It was your deed, title, and a couple other things. Now it's packed. I mean, you're talking whatever 100 pages. So it's just the world we're in. Welcome to the everything riddled with lawyers. So we're not going to get away from it. I don't see any sort of online version because not everybody in the world has access to that. So it has to be a hard paper copy. I think the best way is green is garbage and white is read, right? So that's my thoughts. Back to you, Clay.
Oh yeah, so the VFW appealed to the committee, right? The subcommittee of Veteran Affairs on decision letter specifically. I'm hoping that has some change. I don't think it will, because if you're looking at VA priorities, this has got to be pretty low, right? And
Yeah.
I'm just guessing here. I could totally be wrong, right? But if I was to bet money, I would bet it's pretty low on the priority chain. But what I do want to talk about are decision letters in two different aspects. One, I think the VA gets right, and you hit it right on the head. If you're approved, the VA does this right. It says, hey, you're approved at 10% for GERD. Congratulations, whatever it says. Right below that, it's very short. This is why I think the approvals, the VA gets it right because it's very short. You're approved at 10%. Here's what you would need for 30%. And the VA essentially copies and pastes the 38 CFR criteria. Bam, right there. The VA gets that right. I'm totally on board with what you said. What the VA gets wrong is if you're denied, because it talks about that's where you'll see the mumbo jumbo, right? The 38 CFR codes for the big three. Got it. If you were denied based on rationale, you'll really see that with secondary conditions. You'll see like a one-liner excerpt from the CMP examiner that says like, the CMP examiner opines that tinnitus does not cause migraines, and there's no supporting literature to show the causative link between migraines and tinnitus. That's it. And then it'll say you're denied. All right, got it. Cool. Awesome. The CMP examiner said a bunch more than that. You just don't see that, right? Because transparency. But right below that, then it says favorable findings. And those 4 favorable findings that you can have. 2 of them are stupid. So the VA could go ahead and get rid of those. A favorable finding could be if you're claiming a secondary condition, let's say migraine secondary to tinnitus, and you're denied. A favorable finding would be, hey, your tinnitus is service connected. It's like, well, thanks. Like, I don't even know why you had to tell me that, but sure, go ahead. I'm sure that's favorable, right? The second favorable finding that's useless is if you had a Terra exam or you rated like you're a Gulf War veteran or a Vietnam veteran, it would say, hey, you are a Gulf War era eligible veteran. Thanks.
What?
I knew that. Right.
Right.
Oh my
What?
goodness. So those are completely useless. It's just more mumbo jumbo. The only 2 favorable findings that matter is, and it will say something very, very close to this. This is paraphrase. It will say you did have complaints in your service treatment records, but it was, it would say, let's say acid reflux, but you didn't have a diagnosis of GERD. So it would say, your service treatment records contain complaints of acid reflux,
Mm-hmm.
which is a symptom of the claim condition. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's the VA saying you have the in-service events. That is number 1 of the big 3, right? I guess I should do that one because, we're going to backtrack there. Or another favorable finding, it says, hey, you have been diagnosed with GERD. All right, that's number 2. That's the current diagnosis. So you either have the in-service event and the current diagnosis or both, and you're missing the nexus. What do I think the VA could do to make that better? Because the approval, I think, is fine, minus the first like 15, 16 pages. You can just delete those. What I think the VA can do on denials is just say why you were denied in real bold or red or white or green or whatever color you want to use. Say why you were denied. You had the in-service event. You did not have the current diagnosis, right? Or you had the in-service event and the current diagnosis. The CMP examiner did not give a nexus. That way, veterans know right then and there, hey, I need a diagnosis. Hey, I need a nexus. And that's what's going to prompt you on what's next, which is either supplemental, a higher level review, right? Or you're just like, whatever, I'm going straight to the board, which is totally cool. Not recommended, to be honest with you. Situation that will depend on that. But that's what I think the VA can do for decision letters, because it's just, it's funny you mentioned the house thing, because about 10 feet away from me, there's a huge binder that's about that thick. I have no idea what's in there, right? If you told me to go find my deed, I wouldn't know where to look. And that's the same concept for VA decision letters. If you ask veterans why they were denied, they won't be able to tell you. In fact, veterans would believe they've been diagnosed when the decision letter says you were not diagnosed with a chronic condition, right?
Yeah.
And they need to make it simple. I'm
Yeah.
going to say something, and I'm not degrading veterans, but I am a curriculum developer and instructor in my real job. Whenever I'm on the platform and I'm teaching, I always teach to the lowest common denominator. Because if the dumbest person in the room can understand what I'm saying, we're good to go. I think the VA needs to kind of lower it down and just say, hey, here's why you were denied A, B, C. It's only 1 of 3 reasons, right?
Right. Yeah.
You don't need a 30-page packet for 3 reasons.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
You're
and
right.
so that's my opinion on decision letters. Go ahead and take it away, and then close us out, Jason. Whenever
Yeah,
you're ready.
with those decision letters, like you said, I mean, I think that also not only kind of bringing it down a few levels, I think that in addition, we as a veteran community, or the veteran sphere is what I call it, because you have surviving spouses, you have spouse benefits, you have dependent benefits, all this stuff, is we need to get out of our mind that the VA is actually going to help us in this process. They don't. They're not supposed to. Really. I mean, okay, granted, there is some little spots where they're duty to assist, blah, 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 blah. But really, they're not going to provide the diagnosis for you, typically. They're not going to go grab your evidence for you unless you ask them to, and it's a government agency and blah, blah, blah. But if it's at your personal provider, then you have to sign the form. And even then, right, they will only try so many times before they give up trying to get your information from a private doctor. So you have to get out of your mind that the VA is going to do, like, just without a doubt, get all this information to help back up your claim. No, you need to have the mindset of, I need to gather all the information myself and submit a developed claim that provides those 3, right? Proof of service, proof of the in-service event that it either started or manifested during your time in service or as a result of your time in service, and a diagnosis, right? The VA, yes, I get it. The VA has their whole healthcare system, but they are not going to diagnose you. And your C&P exam with a doctor is not meant to diagnose you. It is meant to basically figure out if your nexus is legit and where your severity falls, in conjunction with the other evidence that you have, right? So it all comes in, and then they have to, that's why your story has to stay the same. It makes it easy. When it's all over the place, they have to figure it out. So, I think that part of it, Clay, is it's twofold. One, we can't think that the VA is going to do it for us. And 2, the VA needs to, like you said, dumb it down a little bit and make it just super, super Barney style for us to go, okay, look, this is what you meant. Here's your 3 boxes, right? Here's your 3 things. I have 2 check marks. Good. Last check mark. No, I need that. Right. And then that's easy. And right on the front page, right? All 3 check marks, 20% or 50% underneath it. Cool. Here's why you're not 60 or 70 or whatever. Cool. Then all the other stuff behind it, right? So, yeah, I agree. Make it easy. And then with my green sheets.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I think that between the 2 of us, we could run the VA. Let's do it.
Yeah, sure. I will definitely hop on board. Now I'm very opinionated, so we're gonna be making some change. All right. The first change is going after claim sharks, but no.
That's right.
I'll go
That's
ahead and
right.
leave that. All right. Go
Gavel.
ahead.
All right. So, hey, with that, we really appreciate you guys hanging on. You know what I'd love to see is if anybody hung all the way through to the end. Anybody who has this amount of time on their hands is definitely a friend of ours. So here we are at, almost an hour and a half, or about an hour and 20 minutes or so for the entire video. And we're going to break it into some smaller digestible pieces for you as well. But I'd love to see it in the comments if anybody hung on till the end. Thank you guys so much for watching. We really appreciate you. Have a great one. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.